Diablo 4, Season 4, Loot Reborn, Bash Barbarian build. Let's not waste time, let's go. So Bash Barbarian. Bash is your main damage output, and the mandatory item, the only one that you actually need to play this build, would be Paying Gorger's Gauntlets. Once you find them, you can start to assemble other gear for the Bash Barbarian. The main stat and the main role on every single weapon should be close damage to enemies and Bash Cleaves. So every time when you temper, you want to go for the close enemies and Bash Cleaves. That's the most important stat, aside from the gauntlets. Perfect gear would be if you can find a crest, and that's when the build scales up like any other build, because basically this helmet should not even exist in a game because every single class is using it. But hey, for the perfect build you need a crest. If you cannot find the crest, any helmet with life, main stat, or better to say strength, all resists or something like that will suffice. One of the very cool items that will give you additional damage reduction would be Tyrael's Might. If you don't have Tyrael's Might, any armor with as high armor as possible, resist, and life is the way to go. Life is the main stat on every single item, on all items, all weapons, on all amulets, rings. There is no playing without life as the main stat. And that's the main trick about this build. The more life you have, the stronger you are. As far as pens go, great ones to have would be those that provide bash. So your bash goes up to 14, 15, 16 out of 5. The higher the rank of the bash is, the more pain you'll deal. As far as boots go, I took my boots with armor, so I can max out armor. When it's above 9250, then it's 85%. You want to have this on 85%, basically. This is where I got my armor from, and I saved Paragon points, so I can invest into life and damage. Later about it, though. As far as weapons go, main stat, life, and critical strike damage is the way to go if you can get it. If you cannot get it, then flat damage is also very good here. Do not forget that you search for weapons that have high life. Ideal weapons would be swords, cause swords have increased critical damage in their passives, okay? So if you can find all weapons with swords, that's when the build is strongest. I could not do it, so I was playing with polearm and with the axe. As far as gems go, red gems into armor, yellow gems for basic attack damage, because we want to increase bash into all weapons, and all color gems into amulet and rings to scale the resists and make them as high as possible. Basically what you need, that's what you're gonna invest into amulets and rings. Now as far as rings go, rings and amulets, the main stat you search for aside from life would be critical hit chance. The higher the critical strike chance, the better on both rings and amulet. If you can find something like this with both critical strike chance and critical strike damage, that would be ideal. Of course, life absolutely everywhere on gear. So what are the imprints? Before you find your crest, very good imprints to have are those for damage reduction. Once you find crest and Tyrael's Might, you just remove damage reduction and play with unique imprints. On pants, we're gonna go with Undying Aspect, of course, so we can recover life and be tankier. On boots, I really like Daze enemies and then more damage to Dazed. As far as the first weapon goes, or better to say the mace, Vampiric Blood Rage is the way to go. On the other big weapon, or better to say sword, polearm, or any other slashing weapon, we're gonna go with basic attacks, increase attack speed by max amount. On the first weapon, we're gonna go with increased bleeding while berserking, and on a second mini weapon, we're gonna go with triple damage while standing still. On a first ring, we gain elements, 30% for increased physical damage on every 7 seconds. On a second ring, we go with 20% damage when your resource is maxed out, and your rage will always be maxed out because you don't use any other skill but bash. Same applies for amulet. When your rage bar is full, your primary resource when it's full, your basic attack scales like crazy and you deal even more damage. Those would be the imprints. For the expertise, you can use two-handed X expertise for increased damage to vulnerable. Also valid is two-handed mace expertise if you dislike vulnerable. I play with vulnerable. Now here we are at the skill tree. Bash all the way up to combat bash. Then we're gonna go down. We ignore the entire core skills. Then we're gonna take the shout, rallying cry. We take iron skin for increased defense. Rallying cry goes into fortify, while iron skin goes into flat healing. Then we're gonna take some thorns from the challenging shout over here with maximum life. We're gonna put some points into outbursts, 1 point into outbursts, 1 point into tough as nails, so we can bleed enemies and then deal increased damage to bleeding enemies. Here we're gonna max out life. Then we're gonna switch down to the brawling skills, where we're gonna take the war cry and we take even more damage from the war cry. And here we're gonna increase all shout's duration, and we're gonna go with additional damage reduction while under the effects of shout. Then we're gonna rank down all the way to the weapon mastery. We're gonna take the pit fighter, max it out, slaying strikes maxed out, no mercy maxed out. And the bread and butter of this build would be the steel grasp that will give you berserking and make enemies vulnerable. So this is the bread and butter. Steel grasp into bash. Down here we're gonna take 1 point into thick skin, 1 point into defensive stance, and 3 points into the counter offensive. And all the way down to the ultimate skills, we don't take a single one. We're gonna take heavy handed 3 times, envelop 3 times, and 1 point into concussion. And at the end, for the key passive, we're gonna take the berserking key passive, and that would be the build. The safe way to play this build would be like this, where you go with all the shouts. Once you're in danger, you're gonna trigger iron skin, you become even more tankier, you drag enemies with steel grasp, and you whack them with bash. If you lack attack speed and you're good with sustain, you can remove iron skin and you can go in for rupture into increased attack speed. That's if you lack attack speed. Now if you're good with attack speed, and you're good with sustain, you don't use Iron Skin, you don't use Rupture, you're gonna go up here and you're gonna use Hammer of the Ancients. And that's the entire trick with this build. Of course, with Hammer of the Ancients, we're gonna take 30% increased damage with Violent Hammer of the Ancients. Once you overpower, you're gonna overpower a lot with Hammer of the Ancients. This is like the perfect build, okay? For the tiers 100 plus and so on, this is how you play. When you scale up, when you rank up, you're gonna play with this. In the middle, when you lack attack speed, you're gonna play like this. So basically you play with 3 different builds until you get the perfect one with the Hammer of the Ancients to push those greater pits 110 plus. Now here we are at the Paragon board. 10 of the glyphs are valid, easily. So it's your choice which one you want to use. I'll pass through everything. How do we start? We go up to the physical damage. We take all the blue nodes around except physical damage. And then we're gonna go to tenacity, get dexterity everywhere, and ramp up the glyph socket for close enemies. Damage to close enemies. Territorial in this case. Then we ramp all up, get the physical damage, and we open up the board where we're gonna take Carnage as the first board. As far as Carnage goes, we pass through here all the way to the glyph socket where we're gonna take Martial. Because Martial increases all blue nodes, we're gonna take all the blue nodes around as well as Brash and Fierce. After that, we're scaling all the way up. We're gonna take Carnage, we continue down left, get down, get Berserking damage, and we open up new Paragon board. In a new Paragon board, we're going up here, we're passing, getting the glyph socket higher for increased damage while berserking. We take all resists, and we take increased physical damage with raw power. Then we're gonna go up here, we take life absolutely everywhere, and we're opening up a new Paragon board, which would be Decimator. Now, from the Decimator, we're gonna go up here, we're gonna take vulnerable damage as well as pillage, then we're gonna go up, go towards the right, we unlock the glyph socket, we're gonna put in Undaunted, then we're gonna go take Demolish, we take Arrogance, we get the Willpower over here for Undaunted, then we're gonna go up here, go straight up to the physical damage and life, take the life nodes up here from the socket on the left, we're gonna take Decimator, legendary node, and we're gonna go down and take Restorative as well as maximum life again, so we increase life as much as we can. After we're done with Decimator, we open up a new Paragon board where we again gonna go first to the left at Restorative, where we're gonna take life. The board would be Blood Rage. After we take life, we go all the way up, we unlock the glyph socket, where we're gonna put Exploit for more vulnerable damage, we take Grit, we take Revel. From the entrance on the right, we're gonna take Berserking damage, and of course we're gonna take Blood Rage for the increased Berserking damage. After we're done with the Blood Rage board, we're gonna go up north and we unlock the final board where we're gonna take again additional extra life. The board would be Bone Breaker, where we're gonna take life from the Bone Breaker absolutely everywhere, and we end up with the Inner Strength for additional sustain while fortified. Now, how do we trigger these to work with their passives? Very simple, we trigger them with incense. What is the perfect incense for all Paragon nodes to work, as well as for life? We're gonna take a life flask over here, Elixir of Fortitude, life scales up. We're gonna take maximum life increased, life scales up again, and we're gonna take Chorus of War, where we get all of those passives to trigger on a Paragon board, and now this is the perfect build and you're good to go. That's the entire Bash Barbarian build. While under the effect of potions and incenses, you can see that passives work. So again, we need extremely high life, huge strength, around 500-600 willpower and dexterity to trigger all of those Paragon nodes. The main freaking stat would be critical strike damage and critical strike chance as far as offensive goes, and of course attack speed. The more the better. You need to pay attention on your resists and optimize them. I can't help you out with that, and it's different. You know, maybe you're gonna have way much better RNG than I did with my items, because my items are mediocre. They're all just maxed out, so the build is quite strong. But you can have better luck with items, definitely, with 2 stars, with 3 stars. You never know. As far as resistances go, adjust, make them above 70. Now, as far as defensive stats go, we cover everything with this build. Close, distant, vulnerable damage reduction, absolutely everything that you can imagine with capped armor. The build is very strong. With my current build, I can easily play through 110 to 120. With slightly better gear, I believe that Bash Barbarian can reach to 130 in a pit. I mean, you kill Tormented Duriel in like 15 seconds, you can demolish Lilith in less than a minute in both phases. It's an extremely strong build. Also, this build is absolutely insane on PvP. Now, what do we do when we decide to play PvP? You could remove some of the glyphs and you could put Thorns, because Thorns is extremely good for PvP, or better to say, Revenge glyph node. If you decide to go to the PvP area, then just switch something and take Revenge, and you're gonna kill everyone. I believe I had around 1000 kills in PvP without a single death this season. It's quite irritating and quite brutal build in PvP. Extremely funny as well. At the end, how long does it take to assemble the build? It depends, because I played with 4 or 5 different builds. It says 7 days is the playtime. I would say that I played like 4 days with Bash, so around 80 hours would be good enough to max everything out. Depends on RNG as well. I played with Whirlwind, I played with Thorns, I played with Leap. I really tested out multiple builds, but for Bash, 60 to 80 hours to max everything out is the correct time. How much time you need to rank everything up. That will be the Bash Barbarian build. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you on the next one. Thanks for watching.